Are you considering possibly going for status in one of these U.S. airline loyalty programs, but just not sure which one might be best for you? And this is completely understandable considering all of these airline companies use their own airline-specific jargon. You have MQMs and PQPs and TQPs and MAL this and EQDs, and it gets pretty confusing really quickly. But nonetheless, airline loyalty status can grant you some pretty cool perks to completely supercharge your airline or just travel experience in general. You can get that lounge access, free checked bags, and those upgrades everybody loves. So what I'm gonna do in this video is I'm gonna go through all the major American airline companies' loyalty programs, and we're gonna see which one is actually best for you, because like videos like these, it's not one program fits all. And there's definitely some programs that just make no sense for certain types of travelers. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna see which program is best for you. What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to Mike's Travels and Cents, where I go over points and travel strategies, and more importantly, how not to go broke while enjoying it all. Now, if that sounds good to you, consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss future content like this. And if you find some value in this video, drop me a like to let me know. But with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. Now, before actually getting into the meat and potatoes, I first like to say that when I started out researching for this video, I wanted to see if there was a similar kind of concept floating online, basically somebody trying to figure out which airline loyalty program was the best. And oddly enough, I couldn't find one. And I thought that was a little bit odd until I started doing the research for this video. And it may not be the exact reason, but I think it's part of the reason. And that's just because there's so many nuances and details to all these programs that to make a really complete video, it will probably take about like 30 minutes. So for that reason, I'm actually going to break this topic down into two, possibly three, but more than likely just two videos, and just make it a little mini series. And throughout the topic of this video, what I'm essentially going to do is first break down the essentials of each program. So things like priority boarding, free check bag, upgrades, and etc. The essentials, the things that people really care about when they think about a loyalty program. And then from there, I'm going to go into the nuances. So things that kind of make each program a little bit more unique or stand out from each other. And then what everybody's waiting for, I'm going to reveal which airline loyalty program is actually the best for each kind of traveler, or you. So with that out of the way, let's get into it. So to quickly explain how we're going through all this, I've broken the different airline loyalty elite levels into tiers, starting from the entry level up all the way up to the highest public tier. And I did not include invite only elite levels like Delta's Delta 360 or American Airlines Concierge Key, since these levels they don't have consistent qualification requirements, and I don't think the perks are anything like too crazy. And for each of the tiers I did include, this is where we will look at the things like that I think are the core of what people really want when they pursue elite status. So the table is broken up into three sections. The top 3 rows are the requirements to achieve each elite level. The next 5 rows deals with the perks of the elite status, as far as your actual your flying or airport experience. And then the last 3 rows look at the mile side of things. Finally, at the bottom are some example flights, all ranging in distance, to give a more complete range of examples for different kinds of travelers. So at the entry elite level, and there's a couple things to point out here. First, looking at the elite qualification section, and the airlines go about this several ways. You either fly a minimum number of segments or miles and must spend a certain amount of money, as is the case with Delta and American, or you can just spend a certain amount of money with the airline regardless of miles and segments, as is the case with United, Alaska, and JetBlue. And then Southwest takes the route of only looking at segments and miles. The standard for this status is about 30 segments and roughly $3,000 in spend. However, if you intend on flying exclusively in economy for paid flights, 30 segments will not get you status on any airline except Southwest. I'd like to note that you shouldn't be fooled by the low segment requirement of United Premier Silver. Running the numbers, and this is only better for you if you take several premium cabin flights, as it's the only way you'll actually hit the minimum spend. At the same time, in case it's not apparent, the trip examples are all for economy. If you're flying business class or even first class, you won't have to take as many trips to get status, but each flight will obviously cost you more. This is the case for all the airlines except Southwest due to it not having a spend minimum. As far as airport experience, some highlights here are that complimentary American upgrades are annoyingly restrictive. Members are eligible for unlimited sub 500 mile upgrades. Anything greater than 500 miles, and you have to burn a 500 mile upgrade, which if you hit the minimum mile requirement for this status, 25,000 EQMs, that would mean you have a total of 8 500 mile upgrades. For perspective, 500 miles is essentially taking a flight to the next state over, unless you're in the very far northeast or Texas, which if you're in some parts of Texas, you might not even make it out of Texas. And these upgrades are for all elite levels and are only good for the next class of service. So if you're on a 3-cabin flight, you won't get bumped up to first class from main cabin, only to business. What this ultimately means is that unless you're a heavy sub 500 mile flyer, you don't really have unlimited complimentary upgrades, since you'll have to burn one of these 500 milers almost every time you fly just to get put on the wait list. Another interesting thing is that you will notice for the 3 domestic focused airlines, the standard free check bag is actually 2 versus the big 3's 1. I'd like to note that the 2 allowed for Southwest are just standard for the airline, is not really tied into the status. Also, the 2 allow for Alaska and JetBlue extended companions traveling on the same fare as well. Furthermore, if you look at JetBlue, you will see that the upgrades are not offered, which does make sense to me considering this is the only elite level, so complimentary upgrades to elite members would be a bit hectic when you can't really prioritize by elite status. As far as the points go, the big things to note here is that Delta is the only program that allows elite miles to actually roll over. So if you finish the year with more than 25,000 MQMs, you'll start the next year with that excess versus being reset with all the other airlines. I think this is a huge perk for Delta, and I can see this being very useful for people who may not have super consistent, travel patterns. Also, American Airlines being stubborn and having the shortest mile expiration time of 18 months, even though all except Alaska no longer expire miles, is just mind-boggling to me. And speaking of Alaska, JetBlue and Alaska actually have the best point bonus at the entry elite level. Moving on up to the next level of the elite loyalty program, and you may or may not notice that JetBlue has disappeared. This is no error. As I stated earlier, JetBlue only has the Trueblue Mosaic elite level. Looking at the rest of the airlines, and you can see the standard is about 60 segments with the exception of Southwest and United, but I've already spoken my piece on United. Some upgrades to note about your experience at this level is the overall bump to the number of check bags from 1 to 2 on the big 3. But remember, Southwest and Alaska already allowed 2 check bags on their previous tier. I'd also like to bring up that as far as my research on American site, they're the only one that just does not allow waive check bag fees for companions of elite members, a perk that can be enjoyed by United and Delta elites. At this level, all 3 of the bigger airlines open up lounge access through a higher elite level in their respective airline alliances. So SkyTeam Elite Plus status for Delta, Star Gold for United, and Platinum Sapphire for American. For Alaska, they are not currently part of an alliance, though they have announced they will be joining oneworld in 2021. So currently, you just have access to some of their international non-partner lounges at this elite level. As far as points, you're now at a 100% bonus for Southwest and Alaska on your earned miles. And looking at our trip examples, and these are the minimum number of flights you're going to need to hit status on most of the airlines. Notice on the example trips, none will get you status on United using these numbers. You'd actually need about 90 segments between Dallas and LA, 54 segments between LA and New York, and 134 segments between Dallas and Chicago. This is due to the annoyingly high spend requirement for all of United's elite levels. Now at the next tier, we also lose Southwest as they don't have an additional elite level, which makes sense for an airline with all economy seats. At this point, we get a bit more variation in the segment requirements, ranging from 36 to 100, but notice that all the spend minimums are suspiciously similar. And looking down at our flight examples, you can see that due to the spend requirements, you basically have to fly the same number of segments no matter what, just to clear the spend minimum. This shows you how airlines can manipulate the perception of these requirements to look better than the competition. As far as your flying experience, you can see that Delta and United actually allow 3 check bags at this level, whereas American is still limiting you to 2 for some reason. Jeez. At this tier, Alaska does at least give you 4 day passes to its own lounge, which is the closest any of these airlines gets to allowing elites to complimentary access to their own lounges. And then there's the obvious bump to the point bonuses from the previous level. And once again, United has the highest spend requirements and by extension, the highest segment requirements with 134 segments between Dallas and LA, 80 segments between LAX and JFK, and 200 segments between Dallas and Chicago. At the final level of publicly achievable loyalty status, and we are left with the big 3. Once again, the spend requirement for United is the highest, with Delta and American essentially matching each other when it comes down to it. You would have to fly 200 segments between Dallas and LA, 120 segments between LA and New York, and 300 segments between Dallas and Chicago for United. As far as experience, they all offer 3 complimentary check bags at this level, though, as a reminder, like I said earlier, American, I couldn't find it. They're not giving that 3 check bag benefit to companions traveling on the same fare, so keep that in mind. The big win here, though, is that Delta is the only one of the 3 that kind of gives members at this level to have the option to choose club membership as part of the choice benefits perk. And these programs practically mirror each other from the points and bonuses and everything else. So that's all the loyalty elite levels that are publicly available from the major US airlines. And that is where I'm gonna wrap up part 1 in this mini series. Be sure to look out for part 2, which should be publicly available probably within the next day or so. And in that video, I'm gonna go through the nitty gritty, the little nuances of each airline program. And if time allows, that's where I'll also point out which airline loyalty program is best for each kind of traveler. But that's all I have for this one. So as always, if you found some value in this video, you should definitely drop me a like to let me know. And if you want to be sure to catch more content just like this, go ahead, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you're notified when I do upload. But remember, the one thing more valuable than your points is your money. And the only thing more valuable than your money is your time. But until next time,